Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another review. Today, we're going to be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So, before we start, I thought I'd tell everybody where I land on these games and the movies and whatnot. So, when these games came out, this is a game that I never played because I'll be completely honest with you, I was way too much of a bitch to play these games. But I remember watching countless people on YouTube play, like, I think it was especially the first three over and over again because there was just so many jump scares and stuff, and I really enjoyed like the gameplay and the concept, and it was just almost like this simple game that was just really effective and really scary. But like I said, I just never played them up until maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I think I bought like a little bundle that had the first three in them, so I played them, and yeah, I enjoyed them. And but there's a lot of lore that I was unaware about, that I'm still unaware about. So I'm a very new casual fan of this like franchise and these games and whatnot. I honestly had no idea the mass appeal that this franchise really had until, like I said, probably 7, 8 years ago when, I went into like Target or Walmart and you had, merchandising with shirts and hats and plush toys and all kinds of stuff. And a lot of it is geared towards kids, which at the time I was like, that is nuts, because as a grown man, this game scares the shit out of me. So, kids playing this, kudos to you. So, like I said, there's a lot of lore that goes really deep that is really lost on me. I have not done my homework when it comes to all the stories with the games and how deep these games actually go, and how much of that stuff is actually brought over to the films. So when the first film came out, I think I worked the night it released, and it was doing that same day thing where it was at the theater and on Peacock at the same time. So I remember at work on our lunch break, we started watching the first one that night, and we got about halfway through it, and I ended up finishing it when I got home that morning. And it was one that I didn't mind the movie at all. I thought it was all right. I know it, fans of it were really hyped for it and really excited for it. And I know that a lot of people really loved it and enjoyed it, especially if you got a lot of the things that they were talking about, like when game references came up or certain cameos came up. I saw so many people that were in the theater that went to go see this movie, and when a certain person would come up or a certain like line from the game or a callback to the game would happen, that like the theater erupted like it was a sporting event, and other people were like, what's going on? I don't know what's happening. And I was one of those people. I watched this movie and I was like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what's referencing the game. So I'm out of the loop on that. So I can tell this franchise is really made for the fans. So while I thought the first one was, it was all right movie, I need to rewatch it again. I have not rewatched it since I first seen it back in 2023, I think, when it came out, or 22, 23. I haven't watched it since, so I'm overdue for a rewatch. After watching the second one, I would like to go back and then dive back into the first one again. But as someone who is a casual fan of this franchise and these games, I was very curious to see where the next movie would go, because I really enjoy being in this world. I think the world and the concept is really cool. So I was curious to dive back in to see where they would take the second one, what they would build on to the lore of it, especially being someone who doesn't know anything about it. So I was in for it. I was along for the ride, and I was really curious to see where they were going to go with it. And I'll be honest, after seeing the second one, I'm very lukewarm on it. I am like right in the middle of the road on it for different reasons. So this movie picks up a year later, after the events of the first one, and Abby, she's a little down and depressed because she doesn't have her animatronic friends from the first one. So she's trying to she really wants, to go back to try to fix them. And of course, Mike, he's trying to move on with his life and get past that. And of course, in like these movies, one thing leads to another, and of course, they're led back to not only the franchise of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but the original location where there is a darker secret that is uncovered there that leads to a whole slew of other things. And that's all I can really tell you without giving anything away of this movie. Starting off with some of the positives that I really enjoyed about this movie was, again, I really enjoyed being back in this world. I was very curious to see what they were going to expand on and to see where the story was going to take us and what the lore was going to, and what they were going to dive more into with that lore of it, and how they were going to connect certain things and and stuff like that. I thought it was really cool. And it's same with the first one. I really enjoyed the look of the animatronics. And this one, they're more of a newer animatronics, you should say. I don't want to give too much away by saying much. And I don't know how much was shown in a second. Or I only watched the first trailer. I avoided the other two because I despise Blumhouse trailers because they give you the entire fucking movie in the trailer, and I cannot stand that. So I don't know how much was shown in certain trailers, but this one they've got more of a newer upgrade to their to the animatronics for a reason that you'll find out if you see the movie. And I thought the animatronics was really well done. I thought they looked really good. I really enjoy the fact that the animatronics weren't like CGI, that they actually used puppeteers to actually move them and control them like they did with the first movie. And I really enjoyed that they did that because it gives it more of an authentic feel, like especially probably for the actors, because in certain scenes they're actually there. They're not looking at a green screen or a dude in a onesie with a tennis ball on his head or anything like that. So I think that adds to it, and it really shows like to the audience that it's more effective that way. They really do ramp up the scares in this movie. Like I said, compared to the first one, I don't remember how many of those jump scares actually were in the first one. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen it, and plus I watched it at home, so that could have had a little bit of a hit on me that didn't land like maybe it did for others. But this one, I saw it in the Dolby Theater, so, it was really loud, but there was a ton of jump scares. Some done really effectively, and others was, the kind of cheap, gimmicky jump scares. But the ones that were, like, legit were really, really good. One of the other things I really liked about this movie that I thought added a really cool, and a creepy factor to it was the new villain, which is the marionette, which I have no idea who that villain is. Like I said, I don't know what game they came along in. They were never in any of the games that I played or that I watched people play. Like, I'm pretty sure they did. I think is there 5 or 6 Five Nights at Freddy's like actual games, and then there was 2 or 3 spin-off games of it that added more stuff. So there's all that, like I said, there's all that knowledge that I know nothing about. But knowing nothing about this character kind of added an extra layer to the movie, at least for me, because it was genuinely creepy. Like any scenes that involved the marionette was super creepy. And some of the things that the marionette does that involves other characters, let's just say, and all the scenes that involve them and what they have to do and what they're a part of, really added some really creepy imagery to the movie where I was like, that is terrifying. Like, that is really, really scary. So kudos to that for adding that creep factor, and I would be curious. I hope this is a character that does come back in future movies. Now, with all that being said, some of the things that were kind of on the side that I wasn't too fond of, the sides that I kind of disliked, was that this movie doesn't have much of a story. Like, I feel like it's a super bare bones story that it was hard to even try to come up with a plot synopsis, because it's almost like it wants us to follow these characters, but it's building to nothing. There's nothing we're going for at the end of the day. Like I said, Abby wants to kind of fix her animatronics because her friends, she grew fondly, had friends from the first movie in there, and then Mike wants to move on. And there's another character who is played by Elizabeth Lale, which, again, she's in the first movie. There's something that's revealed about her character at the end of the first movie, not to give anything away, that connects her to something that's even bigger in this universe, in this world. So she's having to deal with more of that in this movie as well. And I think she's a really cool, complex character, but I don't think we've dug into the meat of her yet. Like, I feel like there's so much in there that is under the surface, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface level of it. Which I know these are probably going to be, I don't know how many movies they plan on making of these, and with how successful the first one was, and probably how successful this one is going to be, they'll probably keep going with them, and which is fine, because I do want to continue her journey, because I do want to see where her character goes and what more we can uncover from her. And I just feel like there's so much meat on the bones there that we haven't got into, and I hope as the movies go forward, I hope we're able to dig deeper into her character and kind of really, really explore a lot of what's going on with her. But for me, I don't know, as for our two main leads, like Abby and Mike, I feel like their story's done. Like, after this movie, I don't know where they would take their story. unless there is something in one of the games that they could easily, twist into, that they could take their characters and put them in there. But I'm curious how they would get their characters in that situation, especially how this one kind of wrapped up. That's why I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know if they would be, better off in introducing newer characters that kind of hooked up with Elizabeth Lail's character later on. I don't know really what they're going to do from here. I just feel like, when it comes to Mike and Abby's story, at least for me, I feel like their story is kind of done. They kind of wrapped up and came, not really full circle, but I don't know, just their story feels like it was completed. Their story arc was completed to me. And I'll be honest, the two characters of them, even kind of in the first movie, there's not really much there to latch on to. Like, I know in the first movie there was this whole thing with Mike and his brother, and then, it was leading into his sister and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just something that didn't capture me. And it was just two characters that I really didn't get invested in. So going into this movie, I was hoping for a little bit something more that would kind of, like let me attach to those characters. And sadly, it was kind of the same way. They're just kind of there, and that's it. Like I said, he's trying to move on and all that stuff. And as for everything else, I just didn't really latch into the characters as much as I was hoping for. So if they decide to take a new route to introduce new characters, I would be okay with it. But if they do decide to bring them back, I just hope they're able to do something to make their characters just a little bit more interesting, to give us, at least for me, something for me to latch onto, to really kind of care about him a little bit more. There's another character that they kind of set up at one point in this movie without spoiling anything that is so off the wall and just so strange and bizarre that you're kind of like, who is this guy? And then as it starts going on, you slowly kind of can put it together, kind of where it's going, because he's so just, how they, like in certain movies, they'll play like red herrings for characters of being really strange and weird, and you're like, well, obviously something, it can't be that guy because it's too on the nose. This guy, they play it so hard, and then when something is near the end of the movie is revealed about him, I think it's supposed to be played as this big shocking thing, and you're kind of just like, yeah, no shit. You're like, he was so off and weird and strange throughout this whole movie. That doesn't surprise me at all. I think if you played him more as a, regular character, I think maybe that would have came as a shock. But he also kind of just comes out of nowhere at some point. So that kind of also tips the hat a little bit, to where you're kind of like, is this going this way? Is this kind of going like that? And then, of course, at the end, something gets revealed. And like I said, you can kind of put two and two together as it goes. I don't know. I also think, at least in my personal opinion, I think this movie really misses the mark of being a PG-13 movie. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but as creepy and as scary as the games are, I feel like if they would have got an R rating, I feel like they could have pushed a little bit more of the violence. And especially in this movie, because there is a certain character that is, something is going on with that character that they're trying to get revenge on characters, and that's all I'm going to say. And with that, there are certain kills in this movie that I felt like could have been really creative, but you only see the aftermath of it, or you only see like a hint of it or a glimpse of it. And I feel like with that R rating, you really could have pushed the boundaries and had that carnage candy, which I know when it comes to, I know this franchise deals a lot with kids, so I know you don't want to see like stuff like that happen to kids. But in this movie, some of the stuff is more focused on the adults, so obviously they could have went more route for the adult side of it. But I feel like they could have went that route, and it would have added this extra factor to it, and they could have went more creepy with it. Not saying that this movie isn't creepy, because there's just something creepy about animatronic dolls anyway, and they kind of lean into that. They do a really good job of playing into that creepy side of it really well, but I feel like they could have done more with it while also adding some of that carnage candy into it that I feel like it could have gave just a little bit more oomph at the end of the day, especially with how creative some of the kills are. I think they could have done that, because with animatronics, you can go all kinds of way, and you can kind of almost like sky's the limit with the stuff that you can do with like creative kills. So that was kind of a hold, a letback for me. But again, this franchise and the games might not really go for that. So that might not be something that, people want to see. They're kind of they might be there more for the scare factor and the creepy factor anyway. But since the movie went that route, I kind of for me personally, that would have been cool to see them if they lean more into that. But I know Blumhouse is notorious for having PG-13 ratings because they want to get more butts and seats. I totally understand that. And then they turn right around on release day for the 4K or the Blu-ray or whatever, and then put the unrated cut or the R-rated cut or whatever. But I feel in this case, Five Nights at Freddy's has such a huge fandom that I feel like people would have came out in droves even if the movie was rated R. Even, like I said, even at one of my showings last night, there was a little kid, probably 5 or 6 years old in there. I guarantee you the parents still would have brought, their kids to see it, because if they're playing the games and are already into that at that age, then, they're going to come see it. Especially if the parents are into it as well, if they play it together, whatever. It might be a family thing, who knows. Plus, like I said, this is very marketed towards kids. So I understand why they went the PG-13 rating, but I'm just trying to make a point. And this next reason, it's probably more of a nitpick than it is an actual negative, but one of the biggest reasons that I even went to go see the first one was for Matthew Lillard. I love that dude. I feel like he's super underrated, and I'm always pulling for him to get more parts and more anything, because like he's such a cool dude. I've been lucky enough to meet him one time, and he was just great, and he has a great status when it comes to fans and whatnot. So he's just a really cool dude. He was the main reason I went to go see the first one, and he's barely in the first one, and he has even less time in this movie, but he is in one really cool sequence. It's almost like a dream sequence, and how they did it was really cool, and I thought his acting was really, really great in that sequence. The same goes for Skeet Ulrich. Like, I love the dude. I got the chance to meet him as well. Really nice guy. And I was so excited with him being in this movie. I knew he would probably have a smaller part, but the little bit we got of him, I was really intrigued with his character. Like, he was somebody I was kind of intrigued with, and I was like, okay, cool. And he's not in it very long. What his character is and how he kind of connects to the story, I can easily see him being in further movies and really expanding on more stuff and drawing out more of that lore and just adding more stuff to the story overall. So hopefully in the future he comes back. And yeah, I'd love to see more of them, but neither one of them were, in this movie for a very long time, which I kind of figured. But like, there's a part of me the selfish part of me, where I was like, I really wanted more Matt and Skeet, but it's fine. It's like, I'm a huge Scream fan, so I was just like, please. But like I said, that's more of a nitpick than anything else. Now, with all that being said, I still had a entertaining, fun time at the theater watching this movie, and that's why I'm so in the middle of the road with it, because I had fun with it. I enjoyed parts of it, and this is a movie that I never dreaded to have to sit down and watch and be like, oh God, I got to sit through another one of those. That was never the case for me. I never had that, or never thought that. Like, even the first one, I was like, the first one, I was like, that wasn't a bad movie. I would watch that again, just like I would watch this one again. I was never bored with it. This is a movie that if, I was with somebody who loved these movies and wanted to sit down and watch them, I would be like, sure, I'm down for that. Let's do it. This is also a movie that I would love to sit down with an actual Five Nights at Freddy's, guru who knows all the lore and stuff, and they can talk me through the movie and be like, okay, this is what's different in here. This is what's different there. They changed this. This is who that person is. This is who they're referencing here. Stuff like that. I think that'd be kind of a cool, like, almost like a learning thing for me, because this, like I said, this is nothing that this is a subject that I know just nothing about. I even worked with a guy a couple years ago that was talking to me about the first one, and I think it was before the first one came out, and we were talking back and forth about it, and he was talking about how much, he enjoyed the games, and he was talking about how much lore and like deep dive that these games actually really have, and just how much stuff is in there and how layered it is. So I was like, yeah, I told him straight up, like I'm telling you guys, I was like, this is stuff that I know nothing about. So like, somebody like him would be somebody to really, watch these with, just so I can get my learning for the day. But this is a movie that is 100% made for fans. I know that they said they were going like bigger and bolder and all that stuff with the second one, and apparently they listened to a lot of the fan criticisms, and they definitely, did more references for the games. There is like a couple references to the games that I caught, in this movie, but there is so much that flew over my head, and I can easily tell you that because there was scenes where something would happen or you would see a particular something and people would just cheer and clap and laugh. Like there's a reference without, this is not a spoiler by any means, but if you're love the game, I'm sure you'll get the reference. There's a scene where Mike picks up a plushie and like squeezes it and all that stuff, and my theater just erupted with laughter. And I said, okay, clearly that is something to a reference that I do not get at all, and it just went over my over my head completely. So, but there, there's stuff like that. There's scenes where you think you see something, and my theater was like gasping, and like it was a really fun theater experience too. So I think that was a big help for me because I actually really had fun in this theater experience. And even when I was going into the theater, like, my God, there was people cosplaying. There was people that had Five Nights at Freddy's hats and shirts, jackets, backpacks. Even there's a guy, he had like one of the little marionette things hanging off of his belt or something like that, kind of on his leg. Like, the fandom is really awesome, and I love when fandoms can bring people together, because it's something that I feel in times like we're going through right now, it's something that makes people really, really happy. So I champion fandoms. I champion, for supporting what you love and doing what you want to do, and I just really champion that, because I love seeing something bring people some entertainment and bringing people some happiness. And those people that were there last night for the showing I was at, just diehard Five Nights at Freddy's fans, and I can tell they were having a great time with it and probably loved it. And so I always champion that, and that stuff like that just makes my heart happy. So I appreciate this franchise doing that for so many people and whatnot. But there was just so many moments like that throughout this movie that that stuff that I just did not pick up on and get. There's a post-credit scene, so if you see the movie, stay for the post-credit scene. And while it's not a scene, at the very end of the credits, there is a particular character that's talking right when it gets near the end, and it kind of adds more to the story. So stay for those two things. But it was so funny because there was a girl that, as soon as the talking ended at the end of the thing, she was probably, I don't know how many rows up, but I just heard her go, "I knew it! I knew it!" And everybody just started clapping and laughing and whatnot and stuff. So stuff like that, it was just a good time. It was just like I said, when I was standing in line waiting to get my ticket, I was looking around at all these people, and everybody's just, I could tell everybody's just really excited. And I knew in my mind, I was like, you know what, this is going to be a fun theater experience. Like, I'm going to have fun with this. Whether or not, I get the movie or enjoy it, I'm going to have fun with this theater experience. So I think watching it with that type of fandom and whatnot, I really enjoyed that. So, since this movie's made for the fans, there's like a lot of stuff that's just going to go over regular people's head like me that I don't get. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, even though I'm not up to par with what's going on, while I had issues with it, there are some moments that I still found enjoyable, and overall, I still found the movie fun, and I would rewatch this movie again. It kind of reminds me of that Resident Evil movie that came out back in like 2021, that Welcome to Raccoon City. I really love Resident Evil. I love the games and all that stuff, and while I'm not too huge on the movies, it's like that movie in particular, the Welcome to Raccoon City, was really a love letter to fans. It was like, hey, this is, because me and a friend who really like Resident Evil were watching that with another friend who is not, knows nothing about Resident Evil. Me and him were going back and forth in that movie, being like, oh, that's so-and-so, that's blah, 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 that's a reference to this. And he was just like, the fuck are you guys talking about? So I feel like it's the same way for this Five Nights at Freddy's movies. And honestly, like I said, I really enjoyed the world. I'm very curious where the story's going to go. I feel like with a world like this, you can kind of go wherever you want. I mean, I know you have all the storylines of the games and the lore and all that stuff. It's baked in, but I feel like you got, you can go wherever and have a lot of fun with this. And I think your dedicated fans will really follow you. I have seen where a lot of people did not like this movie. Totally understand it, but so far I've seen, if you are a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan, you really had a good time with it. And I totally understand that. Like I said, for me, I just felt this movie was very middle of the road. And like I said, I didn't dislike it, but I also didn't like it at the same time. So I'm right there in the middle. If you do plan on going to see it, I would just say know who you are going into it. If you're a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan, you'll probably really enjoy this because you probably really like the first one. And same way with you'll catch references and stuff like that. It'll probably really excite you. If you're somebody like me who's kind of a casual fan who doesn't know a lot of the lore and backstory, a lot of stuff is going to fly over your head. But even with that, it's still an entertaining experience at the end of the day. Like I said, it's not the greatest movie in the world by any means, but it's a movie that I didn't hate myself for spending an hour and 40-some minutes in the theater. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't sitting there like, Jesus Christ, can we get this over with already? I never had that. Like I said, I was entertained. And even though it's been a while since I've seen the first one, I believe that I did enjoy this one more. It might have been my theater experiences. It might have been the stuff that they added in to the movie with scares and whatnot. But I do believe I really enjoyed this one better. And honestly, the beginning of this movie has a really cool hook. It kind of gets you into the story. And I feel like maybe if the rest of the movie was like as tense as that first sequence, what like the opening scene was, I think it would have worked better for me. But not that I'm saying that there isn't, like I said earlier in the review, there's not certain jump scares and stuff that doesn't work, because there is some really good ones and some really, just typical jump scares. But that first sequence brought a lot of tension. There was a lot of tension in that first sequence, and it goes kind of dark. So if it kind of stuck with that, I think I would have been, on board for it a little bit more than I was. It's just cool to me that these movies have just this massive cult following and whatnot, and I'm just happy. Like I said, I enjoy fandom and I champion that 1,000%. So I'm happy, and to all the people that loved it, that's great. I'm happy, and I was like, it just, like I said, for me, something just didn't quite click, but we'll see. Like I said, I'm still curious to see where the third movie's going to go, and possibly a fourth or wherever we get to. So this is a world I'll happily return to in sequels, no doubt. But thank you, everybody. That's my review for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. If this is the review you're finding me on, please come on over and check out all my other 2025 reviews so far. I have a pretty good amount. I'll leave a card somewhere up here for them. And if you have seen the movie, please comment below and let me know what you thought about it. I'm very curious. If you do have anything spoilery, please kind of keep it, please put some kind of warning that it's a spoiler warning. But I'm curious what you guys thought about it, what certain things you picked up on that you really enjoyed. I'm curious what was different from the games, from the games to the movies that if you're a fan that you really enjoyed or didn't enjoy, things like that. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you in the next one. Thank you so much.